Number: the silent cry. The distress signal had been broadcasting for 72 standard cycles when Ambassador Zethkar first brought it to the Galactic Council's attention. The transmission originated from the contested Vorth system, where the peaceful Milani had established their research colony just 3 rotations prior. Now, their desperate plea for help echoed through the void, ignored by every major species in known space. "The message is clear," Zethkar announced to the assembled representatives, his 4 arms gesturing at the holographic display showing the signal's origin. "Colony 779 is under siege by Krillian raiders. They're requesting immediate military assistance." The response was predictably uniform. Silence. Fleet Admiral Gornax of the Hegemony was the first to speak, his massive frame shifting in his specially reinforced seat. "The Vorth system lies outside protected space. Any military intervention would require a full council vote and at least 6 cycles of preparation. By then, the Milani will be dead or enslaved," Zethkar protested, his skin flushing the deep purple of frustration. "These are peaceful researchers, not soldiers. They have no defenses against Krillian war parties." The Altarian delegate's crystalline form chimed with what passed for laughter among her species. "Perhaps they should have considered that before establishing a colony in the Outer Rim. The galaxy is not safe for those too weak to defend themselves." Similar sentiments echoed around the chamber. The Vortan Confederacy cited budget constraints. The Trade Federation worried about disrupting commerce routes. The Synthetic Collective calculated the probability of success at 37% and deemed intervention inefficient. Zethkar's species, the Keth Mori, were known throughout the galaxy for their diplomatic nature and emotional control. But as he listened to excuse after excuse, he felt something he had never experienced before. Rage. Pure, burning rage at the callous indifference of supposedly civilized beings. The Milani were artists, philosophers, and scientists. They had contributed more to galactic culture in their brief membership than most species managed in centuries. Their poetry was studied across 1,000 worlds. Their mathematical theorems had revolutionized faster than light travel, and their medical advances had saved millions of lives. And now they were dying while the council debated protocol. "There is one option we haven't discussed," came a new voice from the back of the chamber. All eyes turned to see Director Sarah Chen of the Terran Embassy, a small human woman who rarely spoke during council sessions. When she did, it was usually to offer aid or resources that other species found unprofitable to provide. "The humans," Admiral Gornax rumbled with what might have been amusement. "What could your tiny fleet possibly accomplish against Krillian raiders?" The human stood, her movement precise and controlled. Most species found humans difficult to read, their expressions subtle compared to the dramatic physical changes that marked emotion in other races. But Zethkar had spent enough time around them to recognize the deadly calm in Director Chen's dark eyes. "We have a small patrol fleet in the Sigma 7 sector," she said, her voice steady. 3 ships. They could reach Vorth in 18 hours. The chamber erupted in what passed for laughter among the various species. 3 ships? The Krillian war parties typically numbered in the dozens, each vessel armed with military-grade weapons and shields. The humans were either delusional or suicidal. 3 human ships against a Krillian fleet? The Altarian delegate's crystalline form practically sang with mirth. "Forgive me, Director, but your species' heroic instincts seem to have overcome your survival instincts." Director Chen's expression didn't change. "Perhaps, but at least we have heroic instincts." The insult hit home. Several delegates began speaking at once, their voices rising in indignation. But Zethkar found himself studying the human more carefully. There was something in her manner, a confidence that seemed out of place given the circumstances. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked, cutting through the noise. "Simple rescue operation. Extract the Milani researchers before the raiders overwhelm their defenses. We're not looking for glory or territory, just lives saved." Admiral Gornax leaned forward, his massive head tilting slightly. "And what do you want in return? Even humans don't risk their lives for free." "Nothing," Chen replied. The Milani are good people. That's enough. The chamber fell silent again. But this time the quiet felt different. Heavier. Most species in the galaxy operated on complex systems of debt, obligation, and mutual benefit. The idea of risking lives for strangers with no expectation of reward was alien to them. The Council cannot officially sanction this action, the speaker announced after several long moments. But we cannot prevent member species from conducting independent operations in unprotected space. It was as close to approval as they were going to get. Zethkar watched Director Chen nod once, sharply, then turned to leave. Something compelled him to follow. Director, he called as they reached the corridor outside the chamber. You know this is suicide, don't you? My military analysts estimate the Krillian force at between 20 and 30 ships. Even if your vessels are well armed. Chen turned to face him. And for the first time, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Not fear, not resignation, but anticipation. Like a predator that had finally found worthy prey. Ambassador Zethkar, she said quietly. There's something you and the Council need to understand about humans. We come from a death world. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years with ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators, diseases, and natural disasters that would extinct most species. We survived by becoming the most dangerous thing in our environment. She paused, her dark eyes seeming to look through him to some distant battlefield. The galaxy sees us as small, weak, emotional creatures playing at civilization. What they don't realize is that we've spent our entire evolutionary history learning one skill better than any other species. How to kill things that are bigger, stronger, and better armed than we are. With that, she walked away, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. Zethkar stood there for a long moment, a chill running through his body that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. 3 hours later, he was in his private quarters reviewing intelligence reports on human military capabilities when his communications array chimed. The display showed an incoming message from the Vorth system. The Milani research station appeared on his screen, its bioorganic architecture beautiful even in distress. But the voice that spoke was human. This is Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the Terran vessel Indomitable. We've received your distress call and are en route to your position. Estimated arrival time 17 hours, 14 minutes. Hold fast. We're coming. In the background, Zethkar could hear other voices. Calm, professional, deadly serious. Charts were being referenced, weapons systems checked, tactical plans discussed with the kind of cold efficiency that spoke of extensive combat experience. Who were these humans, really? And what had the galaxy unleashed by dismissing them as harmless? As if reading his thoughts, another transmission came through. This one was encrypted, meant for Council eyes only. The sender was Director Chen. Ambassador, her voice said from the speaker. You might want to monitor the situation in Vorth. I think it's going to be educational. The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar alone with a growing sense that the galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. He opened a new file in his personal records and began typing. Personal log, Ambassador Zethkar, Day 1247 of Council service. I believe I have seriously underestimated the human species. Further observation required. In the Vorth system, 3 human ships moved through the darkness between stars, their crews preparing for battle with the quiet confidence of apex predators. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. Their ships were smaller than their enemies. Their weapons were less advanced than standard galactic military equipment. None of that mattered. They were human. And that, as the galaxy was about to learn, changed everything. Number, the hunters arrive. Captain Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display update as they approached the Vorth system. 17 hours had passed since they received the distress call, and the situation had deteriorated exactly as his combat experience told him it would. Sir, We're picking up multiple energy signatures, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim from the sensor station. Confirmed Krillian vessels. I count 26 ships in a loose formation around the Milani research station. Any response from the station? Weak signals, sir. They're still broadcasting on emergency channels, but power levels are dropping. Estimate they have maybe 6 hours of life support remaining. Rodriguez nodded grimly. The Krillians were patient hunters when it suited them. They would keep the station alive just long enough to extract maximum value from their prisoners before finishing them off. It was a tactic that had made them the most feared raiders in the Outer Rim. Captain, came the voice of Commander Elena Vasquez from the destroyer, Relentless. We're outnumbered 8-1. Standard doctrine would be to wait for reinforcements. And how long would that take? Assuming the Council approved additional forces, which they won't. Minimum 48 hours for the nearest patrol fleet to reach us. Rodriguez looked at the chronometer. The Milani had 6 hours. Mathematics was simple sometimes. Captain Torres, are you monitoring? He called to the third ship in their small fleet. Affirmative, sir, came the reply from the frigate Defiant. I've got full tactical readouts. The Krillians are using standard raider formation. Heavy cruisers on the perimeter, fast attack craft doing sweep patterns, command ship positioned behind the research station. Recommendations? Well, sir, Torres said with the dry humor that Rodriguez had come to expect from the veteran officer. Conventional tactics would suggest we turn around and run. But since when have humans been conventional? The bridge crew of the Indomitable exchanged looks. They were all veterans. Every one of them. Some had served in the border wars against the Terran Free States. Others had fought in the suppression campaigns against the colonial rebellions. All of them had learned the same lesson. When you're outgunned and outnumbered, you don't fight fair. All ships, this is Rodriguez, execute Omega Protocol. I say again, Omega Protocol. Omega Protocol wasn't in any official military manual. It had been developed during the worst days of the border wars, when human fleets were regularly outnumbered 5-1 by better-equipped enemies. The protocol had 3 simple rules. Hit fast, hit hard, and make them think there are more of you than there actually are. Sir, Kim reported, the Krillians have detected us. They're moving to intercept. Good. Let them come. Rodriguez settled into his command chair, feeling the familiar calm that descended before battle. All ships, maintain current course. Do not power weapons until my mark. The Krillian response was exactly what he had expected. A formation of 6 fast attack craft broke off from the main group and accelerated toward the human ships. They would attempt to drive the humans off with superior numbers and firepower, keeping their main force in position to prevent any rescue attempt. What the Krillians didn't know was that human ships were built for different kind of warfare than anything else in the galaxy. Where other species designed vessels for fleet engagements and territorial defense, humans built their ships to hunt. Range to lead Krillian vessels? 200,000 kilometers and closing. Weapons range? 150,000 kilometers for their plasma cannon. We can engage at 100,000 with our rail guns. Well, 100,000, 150,000, 100,000 with our rail guns. Rodriguez waited. Patience was crucial now. The Krillians needed to believe they were facing desperate fools, making a hopeless charge. 160,000 kilometers. Sir, they're locking weapons on us. Hold course. 150,000. They're firing. Space lit up with coherent plasma beams, brilliant streams of energy that would have vaporized most ships they encountered. But human vessels were different. Instead of the energy shields favored by other species, human ships used layered armor and point defense systems. Minor damage to forward hull plating, reported the damage control officer. Armor is holding. 100,000 kilometers. All ships, you are weapons free. Fire, at will. What happened next was why the Krillians called humans the devils from the dark. Instead of the expected energy beams, or plasma bolts, the human ships unleashed weapons that were fundamentally different from anything else in galactic warfare. Railguns fired solid metal projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. They weren't flashy like energy weapons, but they hit with the force of small asteroids. When a railgun slug connected, it didn't just damage armor, it punched completely through ships and kept going. The lead Krillian attacker simply disappeared in a cloud of debris as a tungsten penetrator from the Indomitable's main gun struck it amidships. The other 5 scattered, trying to avoid similar fates. But human targeting computers had been designed to track objects much faster and smaller than spaceships. 2 more hits, Kim reported with professional satisfaction. Direct penetration on both targets. They're breaking off. Negative, Rodriguez corrected. They're regrouping. All ships, prepare for Phase 2. Phase 2 was where Omega Protocol became truly nasty. Instead of pursuing the scattered attackers, the human ships changed course abruptly and accelerated directly toward the main Krillian fleet. To outside observers, it looked like a suicidal charge. It wasn't. Sir, the main Krillian force is repositioning to meet us. Count 20 ships, moving to intercept. Perfect. Torres, Vasquez, execute scatter pattern 7. The 3 human ships suddenly split formation, each taking a different vector toward the enemy fleet. The Krillians, expecting a coordinated assault, found themselves facing 3 separate attacks from 3 different directions. What followed was a masterpiece of hit-and-run tactics refined over centuries of human warfare. The Relentless swept along the Krillian flank, its railguns methodically punching holes in ship after ship before the raiders could bring their weapons to bear. The Defiant used its superior acceleration to dance between larger vessels, launching missiles that homed in on engine signatures and life support systems. And the Indomitable drove straight toward the command ship like a spear aimed at the heart of the enemy formation. Captain, Vasquez reported over the comm, I count 8 confirmed kills, and at least 6 more ships with major damage. The Krillians are falling back toward the research station. Rodriguez smiled grimly. The Krillians were doing exactly what he had expected. When faced with unexpected losses, raiders always fell back to their prize, hoping to use hostages as bargaining chips. All ships, Phase 3. Time to show them what humans do to slavers. Phase 3 was the reason Omega Protocol existed. The first 2 phases were about evening the odds. The third phase was about making a statement. Human ships carried weapons that other species considered barbaric, cluster munitions that spread clouds of high-velocity fragments through space, kinetic penetrators designed to punch through multiple ships in a single shot, and something the humans called Hell's Rain, thousands of small, smart missiles that could overwhelm point defense systems through sheer numbers. The effect was devastating. The remaining Krillian ships found themselves caught in a crossfire of weapons they had never encountered before, designed according to principles that made no sense to species who fought civilized wars. Sir, massive explosion on the Krillian command ship. Looks like their main reactor went critical. Confirmed kills now at 18. Remaining ships are breaking formation. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the research station. The Milani are requesting immediate evacuation. Rodriguez allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before responding. All ships, maintain perimeter. Begin rescue operations. And someone send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them the situation in Vorth has been resolved. In the command center of the research station, Dr. Milani looked through the transparent walls at the human ships moving into position. Her species had no concept of warfare. They had evolved on a peaceful world with no large predators and few natural disasters. Violence was as alien to them as mathematics was to a simple animal. But she understood that these strange, small beings had risked everything to save people they had never met. When the Galactic Council had failed them, when every major species had turned away, the humans had come. Doctor, one of her assistants said softly, the human captain is requesting permission to come aboard. Dr. Milani straightened her robes and prepared to meet the beings who had just redefined her understanding of what it meant to be civilized. Outside, in the wreckage of what had been a Krillian fleet, evidence drifted of what happened when predators met apex predators. The galaxy was about to learn that evolution had produced something unique in the human species. Beings who could be both utterly gentle and utterly ruthless, depending on what the situation required. And the situation, as the Krillians had discovered too late, had required ruthlessness. The galaxy takes notice. 3 days after the Battle of Vorth, Ambassador Zethkar stood before an emergency session of the Galactic Council, holding a data tablet that contained the most disturbing intelligence report he had ever read. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from across known space waited for him to speak. "The situation," he began, his forearms spreading to encompass the holographic display behind him, "is unprecedented in Council history. 3 human vessels engaged and destroyed a Krillian raider fleet of 26 ships. Total engagement time: 4 hours, 17 minutes. Krillian casualties: all hands on 22 vessels, with 4 ships captured and crews imprisoned. Human casualties: 0. The silence that followed was profound. Fleet Admiral Gornax was the first to break it, his massive form leaning forward in disbelief. 0 casualties? Against Krillians? That's impossible. Our intelligence indicates that Krillian raiders are among the most heavily armed pirates in the Outer Rim." Zethkar activated the next section of his display, showing weapon analysis data. "According to our observers, the humans employed what they call kinetic weapons, solid projectiles, accelerated to extreme velocities. These weapons bypassed energy shields entirely and caused catastrophic structural damage to enemy vessels." The Altarian delegate's crystalline form shimmered with agitation. "Kinetic weapons are primitive technology. Any competent shield system should stop solid projectiles. That," Zethkar said quietly, "appears to be a fundamental misunderstanding of human engineering philosophy. Their weapons aren't more advanced than ours. They're differently advanced. While we developed energy weapons and defense systems, humans perfected the art of hurling very dense objects very fast at their enemies." Director Chen had been sitting quietly throughout the briefing, but now she stood with the fluid grace that Zethkar had learned to associate with danger. "If I may," she said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber, "the ambassador's analysis is incomplete. We didn't just save the Milani researchers. We recovered detailed intelligence on Krillian operations throughout the sector." She gestured, and a new display appeared showing shipping routes, base locations, and operational patterns spanning dozens of star systems. "It appears," Chen continued, "that the Krillians have been much more active than your intelligence services realized. They've raided 17 peaceful colonies in the past year, enslaved thousands of beings, and established permanent bases in systems you thought were uninhabited." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. Species began talking among themselves in dozens of languages, their voices rising in alarm and indignation. "Furthermore," Chen's voice cut through the noise, "our tactical analysis suggests that their main fleet base is located in the Korvash system. Current strength: approximately 200 vessels, and supporting infrastructure." End quote. Admiral Gornax's color shifted to the deep red that indicated extreme agitation among his species. 200 ships? That's not a raider fleet. That's an invasion force. "Yes," Chen agreed mildly. "Which raises the question of what they were planning to invade." The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. A force that size could threaten any single member world. Even the major powers would struggle against such numbers if caught unprepared. "What do you propose?" The speaker's translated voice carried undertones of barely controlled panic. Chen's expression didn't change, but Zethkar saw something shift in her dark eyes. Something that reminded him of the ancient predators from his homeworld's evolutionary history. "Simple," she said. "My government is prepared to deal with the Krillian threat permanently. We have sufficient military assets to eliminate their base and scatter their forces. All we require is council authorization to conduct operations in the affected systems. The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates argued for immediate authorization. Others worried about precedent. The Trade Federation calculated profit margins. The synthetic collective ran probability matrices. Zethkar found himself studying the human delegate more carefully. In the 3 days since Vorth, his intelligence services had been gathering every scrap of information they could find about human military capabilities. What they discovered was disturbing. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, not just occasional conflicts over resources or territory, but constant, continuous warfare against each other, their environment, and every other form of life on their planet. Their entire technological development had been shaped by the need to kill efficiently. More troubling was what they found about human space forces. What the galaxy had assumed was humanity's entire fleet was actually just their exploration and patrol vessels. Their true military was hidden in deep space installations and classified shipyards, building weapons the rest of the galaxy couldn't even imagine. "Ambassador Zethkar," the speaker called, interrupting his thoughts. "Your species has worked closely with humans in recent years. What is your assessment of their proposal?" "Wah." Zethkar stood slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Distinguished colleagues, I believe we face a choice that will define the future of galactic civilization. We can continue to handle threats like the Krillians through committees, debates, and formal procedures. Or, we can acknowledge that sometimes the galaxy needs someone willing to do what others cannot." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. The humans aren't asking for territory, resources, or political power. They're offering to eliminate a threat that we've ignored while it grew strong enough to endanger us all. The question isn't whether we trust their methods. The question is whether we trust their intentions. The vote, when it came, was closer than it should have been. 15 species voted for authorization. 8 voted against. 3 abstained. It was enough. Director Chen nodded once, sharply. As the council session ended and delegates began filing out, Zethkar approached the human. "Director, may I ask you something in private?" Chen nodded, and they moved to a quiet alcove overlooking the station's central garden. For a moment, they watched alien flowers bloom under artificial sunlight. "How long?" Zethkar asked finally. "Has your species been planning for this?" Chen's smile was small and sharp. "Planning for what?" "To become the galaxy's predators. Your weapons, your tactics, your entire military philosophy. None of it is designed for defense. You're not soldiers. You're hunters. Ambassador," Chen said softly. "There's something about humans you need to understand. We didn't choose to become predators. Evolution made that choice for us, over millions of years. Every major threat our species has ever faced, we've dealt with by becoming deadlier than whatever was trying to kill us." She gestured toward the garden, where dozens of species coexisted in peaceful harmony. "The galaxy is beautiful. Full of poets and philosophers, artists and scientists. Beings who've transcended the need for violence and embraced higher purposes. We admire that. We protect that. But we can't become that. Why not?" Chen's eyes seemed to look through the transparent wall into the darkness of space beyond. "Because someone has to be ready when the monsters come calling. And in this galaxy, that someone is us." 2 weeks later, long-range sensors detected massive explosions in the Korvash system. The Krillian base, 200 ships, and every piece of supporting infrastructure simply vanished in a series of thermonuclear fireballs that could be seen from 3-star systems away. The surviving Krillian forces scattered to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, carrying stories that would become legends. Stories about the humans from Earth, the Deathworlders who hunted their predators with methodical precision and showed no mercy to those who threatened the innocent. Word spread quickly through the underworld networks. Pirates began avoiding human space. Slavers stopped raiding systems under Terran protection. The very mention of human warships was enough to make criminal organizations reconsider their plans. In his private quarters, Zethkar updated his personal log. The galaxy has always assumed that civilization meant the absence of violence. The humans have taught us something different. Sometimes, civilization means having someone willing to be violent on behalf of those who cannot be. He paused, stylus hovering over the datapad. I believe we have witnessed the emergence of something unprecedented. A species that chooses to be monsters so that others can remain innocent. Whether this is evolution or divine providence, I cannot say, but I am grateful they are on our side. Across the galaxy, peaceful species went about their daily lives, creating art and literature, exploring the mysteries of science, and reaching for ever greater understanding of the universe. They did so under the protection of beings who had learned, through millions of years of evolution, that sometimes the greatest act of civilization is the willingness to be utterly uncivilized when the situation demands it. The humans had kept their promise. The monsters were gone. And the galaxy was a little bit safer because Earth had produced predators who chose to hunt other predators instead of prey. In the depths of space, human fleets patrolled the darkness, watching for threats that peaceful species couldn't imagine and wouldn't know how to fight. They asked for nothing in return except the knowledge that somewhere, poets could write without fear, scientists could explore without danger, and children could grow up in a universe where nightmares stayed in the dark where they belonged.